I opened the door with a force I didn't know I still had. The house shuddered. It was just past 6 in the evening. I could still smell stew on the stove and toast crusts in the sink. I dropped my bag. "Ruth?" I shouted. No answer. Only a sound, low, muffled, rhythmic, coming from upstairs. Not a cry of pain. A different sound. A sound I hadn't heard in years, and never expected to again. I knew that sound. I climbed the stairs fast, heart pounding in my ears like war drums. I pushed open our bedroom door, and everything inside me died. She was there. Ruth. My wife. The woman I'd loved for 50 years. The woman who held my hand in chemo, who whispered old rock songs in my ear when I couldn't sleep, who once wrote me love letters just for going to the grocery store in the rain. And now she was in our bed, naked beneath another man. He was younger. Fitter. The kind of man who probably jogged at sunrise and smelled like sandalwood. His hand was on her hip, possessive. She looked up when she saw me. Not shocked. Not ashamed. Just distant. Like I was the one intruding. "Charlie," she whispered. "Not now," he said, pulling his jeans up lazily. "Let me finish." I grabbed him by the collar and slammed him into the wardrobe. He stumbled, wiped a trickle of blood from his lip, looked ready to fight. I didn't swing again. "Out," I said. "No." He smiled, then walked out like he'd just used the restroom in a stranger's house. I turned to Ruth. 50 years, I said, my voice not even mine. "You threw away 50 goddamn years?" She sighed, like I was annoying her. "We both know love died a long time ago." I couldn't breathe. "I built this house for you. I sat by your bed when they said you might not make it. I raised our kids with you. I buried your mother. I gave you everything I had." She looked away. "I needed to feel alive again," she said, soft and cold as ice melting in a glass. And right then I knew, the woman I thought I knew had been gone for a long time. Or maybe she was never there to begin with. Maybe I'd fallen in love with a dream, a role she played until it bored her. I don't remember walking out. I don't remember grabbing the car keys. I remember the way my hands shook on the steering wheel, like I was holding back a storm. I drove into the night. Just the road, the headlights, and an old blue station on the radio laughing at me in static. But I didn't cry. Not once. No. I was already planning. Not revenge, not yet. Something colder. Something slow. Because when everything you believe in is taken from you, there's a freedom in that emptiness. And I was free now. Free to become someone they wouldn't see coming. I drove for hours, with no music, no destination, no thoughts I could hold onto long enough to mutter. The only sound was the engine, humming like a tired old man, and my breath, shallow and dry like the wind slipping through a cracked window. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't be there, not in that house, not in that bed, not under that roof where everything had just bled out and died. I ended up parked beside a diner off Route 31. It was closed. The sign still flickered, though, open 24 hours, a lie that somehow didn't surprise me. I sat in the cab of the truck, staring through the windshield like it was a movie screen. And in a way, it was. Because nothing felt real anymore. The colors, the shapes, they were all too sharp, too clean. Like someone had repainted the world, but missed the soul of it. My hands were still clenched on the steering wheel. I didn't even remember putting the keys in the ignition. The dashboard lights glowed like embers in a fireplace that hadn't warmed anyone in years. I tried to breathe deep. Failed. Tried again. My lungs felt like someone else's. Somewhere around midnight, I got out. The night was quiet, almost sacred. No cars, no wind, just the faint hum of street lamps and the buzzing of my own mind unraveling. I sat down on the curb, leaned my elbows on my knees, and stared at the gravel. I could still smell her. That mix of lavender and something sweeter, something that had once meant comfort. Now it smelled like betrayal. I tried to remember the first time I met her. I tried to reach for that memory like a lifeline, like maybe it could explain something, anchor me. But it felt out of reach. Like it belonged to someone else. I wasn't that man anymore. That man believed in things. That man had a future. I lit a cigarette, though I hadn't smoked in over 20 years. It tasted like dust and bad decisions, and I welcomed both. I let the smoke burn its way through my chest and watched it drift into the stars. My hands trembled. From rage? From heartbreak? From age? I didn't know anymore. I wasn't crying. I should have been, maybe. But the tears weren't there. I was past that now. Beyond the point where grief becomes sadness. This was something else. Something harder. Like a bone snapping after it's already been bruised for years. I thought about calling someone. The kids. My brother. Even Mike, my old fishing buddy. But what would I say? Hey, Ruth just spit on 50 years of marriage. Want to grab a beer? No. This wasn't something I could share. This was mine. My fall. My darkness. My goddamn crucifixion. Somewhere inside, I felt a voice whisper, maybe you deserved it. Maybe I'd been blind. Maybe I'd stopped listening. Maybe I'd been so busy surviving that I forgot to live with her. But that voice? I shut it up fast. Because no matter what I did or didn't do, I never walked into another man's arms. I never betrayed. I never lied. I never let go of the promise. And that had to count for something. I finished the cigarette, crushed it under my boot. Then I sat back, stared at the diner's empty windows, and started to make a list. Not on paper. In my head. Cold. Sharp. Clean. A list of everything I'd lost. Trust. Time. History. Her. Then I made another list, one of everything I had left. That one was shorter. But it had one thing on it that the other didn't. Fire. A burning, focused, merciless fire. Not anger. Not revenge. Just certainty. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to break dishes or call lawyers. That's not who I was. That's not who I would become. I was going to be still. Patient. Watchful. I would let her believe I'd accepted it. Let her believe I'd moved on. Because when you show them nothing, they forget to fear you. And when they forget to fear you, that's when you strike. Around 3 a.m, I got back in the truck and started the engine. The road home was waiting. Not the house, that wasn't home anymore. I mean the road itself. The silence of it. The honesty. I would drive until the sun came up. And then I'd begin. Not grieving. Planning. She wore yellow. I remember that part clearer than anything. It wasn't just a dress, it was the dress. The one that wrapped around her waist like summer wind and made me forget whatever reason I had for walking into that bookstore in the first place. I was 22, fresh out of the service, carrying around more silence than stories. My hands would tremble when I held a cup, and sometimes at night, I still braced for things that weren't there. But not that day. That day was quiet, warm, and slower than the world I'd come back to. She was shelving paperbacks, humming to herself with one foot tucked behind the other, and I stood there like an idiot pretending to browse until she looked up and caught me. Her smile wasn't cheap. It had gravity. Like it came from a place she didn't open often. "You need help finding something?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "You." And it was the stupidest thing I could have said, but she laughed. Actually laughed. That kind that makes you feel like you've been handed something you didn't earn. I fell right through that laugh. We met for coffee the next day. I brought flowers. She made fun of me for that for years, but I think she liked it. We talked until the place closed, and I remember thinking, "Don't screw this up, man." The next time we met, I cooked for her. Steak and potatoes. She said it was dry, but I saw the way she scraped the plate. Everything after that moved in its own rhythm. Not rushed. We weren't like kids today. We didn't burn hot and crash. We built slow. She got promoted, twice. I saved up for a ring I wasn't embarrassed to show. And on one ordinary Sunday, sitting on a picnic blanket, she looked over and said, "You gonna ask me, right?" She said yes before I could say a word. That's what kills me the most. How real it was. All of it. The way we danced in the kitchen barefoot to Sam Cooke. The way she'd tap her fingers on my wrist when she couldn't sleep. The way she sang "Let It Be" off-key while she folded laundry. We made a life out of tiny things. First mortgage. First child. First emergency room scare. We laughed through some hard winters. We held onto each other through even harder springs. She used to run her fingers through my hair and say, "I hope we forget what it was like before us." I remember that line like scripture. Because I believed her. Every single word. I remember the day we walked into the house we'd end up staying in for most of our lives. It smelled like dust and paint and leftover sunlight. We had nothing but 2 suitcases, an old coffee table, and an air mattress. But when she looked around and said, "This is home," I felt it in my chest like a drum. We painted the kitchen ourselves. She chose yellow. Always yellow. Said it reminded her of mornings in her grandma's kitchen. I built her a bookshelf from scratch. Took me 6 weekends. She cried when I surprised her with it. Our daughter was born on a Wednesday. Rain on the roof. Her eyes just like Ruth's. I've never seen my wife softer than she was in that moment. Then came the boys, chaos, sticky fingers, endless laundry. She was a mother through and through. And I loved her more for it. There were fights, sure. Ugly ones. Times when we didn't talk for days. Times when I slept in the den. But we always came back. Always. Until she didn't. Now every good memory is like glass in my throat. The day we danced under the street lamp when the power went out. The time she cut my hair and botched it so bad I had to wear a hat for 2 weeks. The way she used to fall asleep holding my shirt in her hand. They used to make me smile. Now they just hurt. Because no matter how much I want to pretend otherwise, I can't unsee what I saw. That man. That look in her eyes. Not guilt. Not regret. Just absence. She wasn't there. The woman I loved, she wasn't anywhere in that room. So what was all of it? A phase? A performance? Did she ever really mean it when she said, "always"? Or did "always" have an expiration date I never saw? I try not to go there, but it's hard not to. Because if all of that was real, then how could she throw it away like nothing? And if it wasn't? Then who the hell did I spend my life with? I hold on to those memories, even though they cut. Because if I let go of them, then I'm admitting it was all a lie. And I'm not ready for that. I don't know if I ever will be. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I closed my eyes, but the reel kept running behind my eyelids, her face, the way she moved away from him like it was natural, the way she looked at me like I didn't belong in that room anymore. Morning light didn't feel like morning light. It felt like exposure. Every inch of me raw, every second dragging its feet like it didn't want to pass. By 8, I was already in the truck. Coffee from a gas station. Burnt, bitter. I didn't care. I needed something in my hand. Something that felt like control. Something that kept me from turning the wheel into oncoming traffic. I started making a list. Not out loud. Not on paper. Just in my head. People who knew us. People who might have seen something I didn't. I wasn't looking for comfort. I wasn't looking for therapy. I wanted facts. Cold, heavy facts. I drove to Carla's first, Ruth's oldest friend. They'd been close since college. She answered the door in a bathrobe, hair up, surprised to see me. "Charlie," she said, blinking. "Everything okay?" I didn't answer that. Just asked if I could come in. She hesitated. Not long, but enough. She knew something. I could see it in the way she looked down at her feet. I sat on her couch, refused the coffee. "How long?" I asked. She didn't play dumb. Didn't ask what I meant. Just sat across from me, hands clasped like she was in court. I didn't want to get involved. That was her defense. That was all she had. "How long?" I repeated, slower. "A year. Maybe more. I'm sorry, Charlie. I didn't want to hurt you. It wasn't my place." I laughed. Couldn't help it. The kind of laugh that doesn't sound like it belongs to you. "Not your place?" I said. "You watched my life fall apart in slow motion and decided it wasn't your place?" She started to cry. I didn't comfort her. I just stood up and left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't shout. I didn't have the energy. Next was the office. Ruth retired 2 years ago, but the people still remembered her. I asked a couple of her old co-workers, just casual. One of them, a guy named Dan, looked at me like he pitied me. He said, "We all thought you knew." They weren't subtle. That hit harder than I expected. Like the whole world had been in on the joke, and I was the punchline. I left before I did something I'd regret. Then I went home. Not to talk to her. Just to sit. To look. To feel what it meant now. I walked through each room like it was a museum. This was the couch where we fell asleep watching old westerns. This was the kitchen where she'd hum while cooking. This was our bedroom, and I couldn't even walk in. I stood in the doorway like it was a crime scene. Maybe it was. Her perfume still lingered in the air, and it made me nauseous. I sat at the table, stared at my hands, and tried to figure out what I missed. I thought back. To the nights she came home late. To the times she didn't answer the phone. To the moments she smiled to herself when she thought I wasn't looking. Every single sign was there. All of them. And I missed them. Or ignored them. Because love makes you blind, but trust makes you stupid. I thought we had something unbreakable. Turns out, she'd been chipping away at it for years. Quietly. Carefully. Like a sculptor shaping the end of us with every lie, every omission, every little choice to turn away instead of toward. I wanted to scream. I wanted to hit something. But I didn't. I just sat there, the silence pressing down like a second gravity. I don't know how long I sat like that. Maybe an hour. Maybe 3. Long enough for the sun to shift, long enough for the shadows in the room to change shape. Eventually, I got up. Went to the closet. Her things were still there, neat, folded, untouched. I stared at them like they might talk back. Like they might explain themselves. They didn't. I pulled out one of her sweaters, the one I bought her 2 Christmases ago. Soft. Blue. She wore it the day we got snowed in and made soup from whatever was left in the pantry. She laughed so much that night. I dropped it on the floor. Walked out of the room. I wasn't ready yet. Not to forgive. Not to confront. But I was done pretending I didn't know who she was now. She wasn't mine anymore. Maybe she never really was. I stopped shaving. Stopped eating much. Coffee in the morning, maybe a piece of toast, but only because the body insists on survival even when the soul's gone dark. The house felt bigger. Not because it was empty, but because I'd become small inside it. I'd walk from one room to another and forget why I went there. I'd stand at the window for hours, not looking at anything in particular. Just existing. A ghost in my own life. The phone rang sometimes. I didn't answer. Messages piled up, the kids, a neighbor checking in, some spam caller selling roof repairs. None of them had the voice I wanted to hear. And even if she called, what would I say? What was there left to say? I didn't cry. That surprised me. I thought grief came with tears. But this wasn't grief. This was absence. Like someone reached inside and scooped me out with a spoon. I was hollow. And it wasn't the kind of hollow that invites healing. It was the kind that echoes. At night, I didn't sleep. Not really. I'd lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow, round and round, like the thoughts in my head. I'd hear noises, the fridge kicking on, a creak in the floorboards, my own breath rasping through clenched teeth. Sometimes I'd get up and walk through the dark house. No lights. Just feel my way. Like I was blind. Or like I didn't deserve to see anymore. I opened drawers I hadn't looked in for years. Letters. Photos. Old receipts from road trips. Her handwriting everywhere. That neat, looping script. The kind of handwriting that belongs to someone who always knew who she was. I used to love that about her. Now it made my stomach turn. One night I sat in the garage, lights off, door cracked just enough to let the moon in. I stared at the toolbox. Thought about every tool I ever used to fix something in this house. The leaky sink. The broken fence. The roof after that big storm. I always fixed things. That was who I was. But this? This I couldn't fix. The toolbox didn't move. The tools didn't whisper secrets. There was no answer hidden in the hammer or the wrench. So I sat at a 4 hours. Breathing slow. Trying to feel anything other than what I was. And slowly, something else began to grow. Not hope. Hope was dead. This was colder. Sharper. It started as a flicker. A thought I pushed away. Then it came back. Clearer. Stronger. They don't deserve to just walk away. That was the thought. Not shouted. Not angry. Just certain. She cheated. Lied. Lived a double life while I made her coffee and fixed her shelves. And now she was out there, maybe with him, maybe laughing, maybe wrapped up in some motel sheet, pretending her life didn't start in my arms. No. That wasn't going to be the end of the story. I'd been kind. I'd been quiet. I'd been the man everyone could depend on. And where had that gotten me? Alone. Broken. Forgotten. People like her, they count on men like me to take the hit and disappear. To fade into silence while they rewrite history. But I wasn't fading. I was still here. And I remembered everything. The betrayal. The lies. The look in her eyes that night, not even a flicker of shame. That was the moment. The real one. When I realized she wasn't sorry. She was free. She'd been waiting for me to find out. Maybe even hoping I would. So she wouldn't have to lie anymore. But me? I wasn't free. I was bound. To pain. To the past. To the version of her that still lived in my memories, smiling over pancakes or dancing barefoot in the kitchen. I couldn't erase that version. But I could balance the scale. I could restore the truth. She chose this path. She opened the door to a man who wasn't me. She invited this chaos. Now it was mine to hold. And I would. Not with rage. Rage burns out. No, this was colder than rage. This was something I could live with. Something I could feed. She thought I was finished. That I'd fade away into the background of her new life. But I wasn't a background. I was the foundation. I was the history she couldn't rewrite. And I wasn't going anywhere. Not until she understood exactly what she'd broken. Not until he understood what it meant to steal from a man who'd built his world with his bare hands. Something was coming. I didn't know what yet. But it had weight. It had shape. And for the first time in weeks, I felt alive again. She called me. That alone was enough to make my hand shake when I saw her name on the screen. I hadn't heard her voice in weeks. Just her name lit up across the display like some ghost coming back to finish what it started. I didn't answer at first. I let it ring out. Watched the name disappear. Then it rang again. This time, I picked up. Charlie, she said. My name didn't sound like it used to in her mouth. It used to carry something. Weight. Warmth. Now it just landed flat. Can we talk? I sat in silence. My throat was too tight to let anything out at first. Finally, I said, why? She hesitated. Because we have to. Please. I told her I'd be at the house at 6. Not our house. The house. The difference mattered now. I got there early. Sat in the truck for a while. Watched the windows like they might tell me something. They didn't. The place looked the same. Too much the same. It felt wrong. Like walking into a childhood home where someone else lives now. I walked in and waited. She was already inside. In the kitchen. She turned when she saw me and gave that soft, sad smile women use when they've already decided how the conversation ends. Hi, she said. I didn't respond. Just looked at her. She looked thinner. Tired. But not broken. That part stung. I wanted to see some evidence of destruction. Something that looked like what I felt. I'm not here to fight, she said. Then why are you here? I asked. To explain. She moved to sit down, but I didn't. I stayed standing. She folded her hands on the table, like this was a meeting. Like we were negotiating a business deal. It wasn't supposed to happen, she said. That's always how it starts, right? I replied. A little attention. A few compliments. Then suddenly you forget who you are. She looked down. It didn't start with him. It started when I started feeling invisible. When we stopped seeing each other. You mean when I was working 12-hour days to keep a roof over our heads? I shot back. When I stayed up with you through chemo, sat in waiting rooms holding your purse while they pumped poison into you. You felt invisible then? She winced. Don't do that. Don't what? Tell the truth? Weaponize the past. You weren't perfect either. I stared at her. I wasn't perfect. But I was faithful. Her eyes filled, but I didn't care. Not now. She'd had her tears. I had silence. I had empty dinners. I had the bed that grew colder by inches each year. You stopped touching me, she whispered. You stopped looking at me like I mattered. I leaned forward. And you decided that instead of telling me, you'd open your legs for someone else? Her hand flew to her mouth. I didn't regret it. She needed to hear it. To feel it. I wasn't the quiet one anymore. I wanted to feel alive, she said, almost choking on the words. He made me feel wanted. You were wanted, I said. Every single day. You just stopped noticing. We stood in silence. The clock ticked on the wall, louder than anything. Finally, I asked the question I'd carried like a tumor, was it love? She didn't answer right away. That silence, it said more than words ever could. I don't know, she said. That was worse than a yes. A yes, I could fight. A yes, I could burn down. But I don't know? That meant it could happen again. With someone else. Anyone. Because it wasn't about him. It was about her. About who she'd become. About the part of her I no longer recognized. You killed it, I said. Whatever this was. You didn't just cheat. You erased us. Her lip quivered. She whispered, I still care about you. Don't. I mean it. You cared about me while you were moaning someone else's name in our bed? The words came sharper than I meant. Maybe not. Maybe exactly as I meant. You hate me, she said. No, I said. I envy you. She looked at me, confused. Because you get to move on. You had the affair. You got the thrill, the attention, the break from reality. Me? I get to dig through the ashes and pretend there's something worth saving. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry. Yeah, I said. You should be. And then I walked out. Not because I was done. But because if I'd stayed 1 second longer, I would have told her I still loved her. And I wasn't ready to hate myself for that. I thought I'd feel lighter after that conversation. Like finally getting something off your chest should make it easier to breathe. But I didn't. I felt heavier. Like every word we said hung on me like wet clothes in winter. I drove aimlessly for hours, past fields, neighborhoods, gas stations glowing in the dark like sad little lighthouses. The road didn't ask questions. That's why I stayed on it. The moment I'd stop, the thoughts would catch up. And they were loud. I couldn't stop hearing her voice. That broken whisper, I still care about you. It echoed like a lie I wanted to believe. I kept asking myself the same question over and over, if she walked in right now, crying, asking for forgiveness, what would I do? And the sick part is, I didn't know. That scared me more than anything. That even after all the betrayal, some small part of me still flinched at the idea of turning her away. That small part, that damn loyal, bruised, idiotic part, it remembered her laugh. Her eyes when she was 25. The way she used to fall asleep with her fingers curled around my shirt. It remembered the woman I loved. Not the one who lied. Not the one who cheated. But the one I built a life around. And that part, it still hurt like hell. But the rest of me? The rest of me was done begging. I'd spent too long justifying her choices in my head, rewriting our past just to make sense of this future. I wasn't going to do it anymore. Because here's the truth no one likes to say out loud, as some betrayals aren't survivable. Not really. You keep breathing, yeah. You eat, you sleep, you put on a face for the world. But inside? Something's dead. Permanently. And no amount of time or therapy or late-night tears can bring it back. That's what forgiveness would have meant. Killing off what little was left of the man I used to be, the man who believed in her, who trusted her. Forgiveness, in this case, would have been another kind of betrayal. One I'd commit against myself. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't. I pulled into the lot behind an old diner we used to go to. Closed, lights off, just the moon and the buzzing hum of neon that never got fixed. I sat on the hood of the truck and lit a cigarette. Watched the smoke curl up and vanish into the dark. That's what it felt like, everything vanishing. Everything we built. Everything we promised. I thought about all the times I put her first. All the sacrifices, the jobs I turned down, the friends I stopped calling, the things I wanted to do but didn't because we came first. Now we was gone, and all I had was the ghost of a marriage she'd already buried long before I found out. The part that stung the most? It wasn't just the sex. It was the ease. The comfort. The casual nature of it. Like stepping out of our life and into someone else's was no harder for her than changing clothes. That's what kept me awake at night, not what she did, but how little it seemed to cost her. And that's when I knew. This wasn't about revenge. Not anymore. Revenge is messy. It's hot, emotional, impulsive. No, this was different. This was clarity. This was balance. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't even going to cry anymore. I was going to plan. I was going to take back the one thing she thought she stole from me, control. I would make sure she felt it. Not just guilt. Not just regret. Real consequence. The kind that doesn't fade with time. The kind that leaves a mark. Because some people have to lose something permanent before they realize what they've done. And I was done being the one who always sacrificed. This time, she was going to bleed, not from a wound, but from the absence of everything she took for granted. I stubbed out the cigarette and got back in the truck. No music. No distractions. Just the quiet hum of the engine and the road ahead. I wasn't driving away from her. I was driving toward something. Toward a version of myself I never thought I'd need to become. I wasn't the man she married anymore. That man was dead. She killed him. What she left behind, that was someone she should have feared. I didn't wake up one day with a plan. It came in pieces. Like ashes settling after the fire's gone out. One thought at a time. One ugly, sharp little revelation after another. And soon, I wasn't just angry anymore. I was ready. Ruth had no idea what I was capable of. She thought I was soft. Predictable. A man who'd swallow his pride and go to therapy, maybe beg for one more chance, maybe even take the blame. That's what made it easy for her. She thought I'd just fade. But I wasn't fading. I was sharpening. It started with her job. She didn't work anymore, but she still did contract consulting, tax work for a few small companies, under the table mostly, half retired but still clinging to the illusion of control. I knew her system. I built the damn spreadsheet templates. I helped her set up the servers. One of those companies was run by an old friend of mine. He owed me. I told him the truth. Quietly. Clinically. No drama, no tears. Just the facts. She was dishonest. She'd been using her position to funnel expenses, conceal income, and fudge a few numbers to make her clients look better on paper. It wasn't technically criminal, not yet. But it was enough. Enough to pull the plug. She lost 3 clients within a week. One of them emailed her a termination letter I wrote myself. She'll never know. Next was the apartment. She'd moved in with him. Of course she had. His name was Jarrett, a former co-worker, 10 years younger, shiny teeth, too much cologne, the kind of man who doesn't buy furniture, just leases it. I did some digging. Found out Jarrett had a suspended license, a court warning over tax fraud, and a sealed report from HR about inappropriate behavior. I took that to someone I knew in corporate compliance. 2 weeks later, Jarrett was gone. No explanation. Just a pink slip and a security escort out the building. He never even saw me coming. Ruth called me that night. She didn't know I was behind it. Not yet. She just said, "Things are falling apart. I don't know what's happening." I said, "Sounds familiar." And I hung up. But I wasn't done. Next came the house. Technically, we were still co-owners. She hadn't filed anything. Thought I'd just hand it over, maybe buy her out, keep things quiet. So I changed the locks. Filed a motion for exclusive occupancy. Claimed she'd abandoned the property. I left copies of the documents in her mailbox, not to scare her. Just to remind her that I still knew how to fight. Then I went after the image. Ruth loved her image. The garden club, the charity brunches, the wine tastings with women who wore pearls and never raised their voices. I sent them all copies of a letter. Anonymous. Just a simple, clean summary of the truth. Married 50 years. Betrayed him. Living with a man 10 years younger. Lied to friends. Lied to clients. Lied to herself. Some ignored it. Some didn't. The Whisper Network did the rest. She started getting uninvited. Slowly. Subtly. It wasn't loud. That's the key. Mice don't scream when the trap snaps shut. They just stop moving. Through it all, I never raised my voice. Never sent a message. Never slammed a door. Because rage is loud, but power is quiet. I wanted her to feel the silence, to look over her shoulder and wonder if the world was suddenly shifting beneath her feet for no reason. That's the thing about karma, when it's surgical, it feels like coincidence. I sat on the porch one night, after another quiet, methodical day, and felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Stillness. Not peace. Not joy. Just stillness. The kind that comes after you've set a bone that broke in 2 places and screamed while doing it. You not healed. But it's aligned. It's ready to knit. People say revenge is poison. Maybe. But for me, it was medicine. Because it gave me direction. It gave me dignity. She took away my past. He mocked my worth. But I reclaimed my place in the story, not as the victim, but as the reckoning. They thought they broke me. What they did was wake me up. I waited. I waited until the timing was just right. Not rushed. Not impulsive. This wasn't going to be one of those parking lot brawls where 2 men shout and swing and stumble like drunks. No. I wanted it quiet. Controlled. Real. I found out where he worked now, not a real job, just some contract gig at a warehouse up off the highway, night shift. Perfect. No witnesses. No cameras. Just concrete, oil stains, and enough shadows to do what needed doing. I waited across the street in my truck. Lights off. Engine running low. Midnight came. Then 12:30. Then one. And finally, there he was. Jared. His walk said everything I needed to know, head up, arms swinging like he owned the place, still thinking the world hadn't caught up to him yet. He didn't see me until I was already out of the truck. I didn't speak at first. Just stood there, in the dark, across the empty lot. He squinted, slowed down. "Hey," he said, unsure. "You lost or something?" I stepped into the light. Slowly. Calmly. Let him see me. Let him realize. "No," I said. "I'm exactly where I need to be." He stopped walking. "Charlie." He didn't sound scared. Not yet. But I saw it flicker in his eyes, that twitch of doubt, like maybe this wasn't going to go the way he thought. "What do you want, man?" he asked. "You here to talk?" I shook my head. "I've done enough talking." I walked closer. Not fast. Just steady. And he backed up a step. "Listen, I know things got messy," he said. "But it wasn't personal." I smiled. "Of course not. You were just bored. Just saw a woman in a ring and decided it didn't matter." "She came to me," he said quickly. "Don't make me the villain here." I stopped about 5 feet from him. Close enough to see the sweat on his forehead. "Oh, Jared. You were always the villain. You just thought the story wouldn't have a sequel." He bristled. "What, you think you're gonna scare me now? You think showing up here like some old cowboy is gonna change anything?" I didn't answer. I just took off my jacket. Folded it. Laid it on the hood of my truck. Slow. Precise. Then turned back to him. That's when he swung. Fast, wild, like a kid who watched too many movies. I dodged it easy. Years of construction work taught me how to move. He swung again, same thing. Sloppy. Loud. Desperate. I let him get close that third time. Let him think he had a chance. Then I grabbed his arm, twisted just enough to make him grunt, and pushed him hard against the truck. "This isn't about fists, Jared," I said. "It never was." He struggled. I held firm. "You took something from me." And for a while, I thought that meant I had to take something back. Eye for an eye, right? He looked at me, breathing hard. "So do it," he spat. "Hit me. Be a man." But I didn't. I stepped back. Let him go. Watched him stumble. "You don't get to make this clean," I said. "You don't get the punch and the apology and the walk away. You get to live with it. Every damn day." "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means when she leaves you, and she will, you'll remember this moment. When you realize you were never special. Just convenient. Just next." He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. "She's not your prize, Jared. She's your test. And trust me, you're going to fail." I got back in the truck. Engine turned over like thunder. He didn't follow. He just stood there, alone now, with everything finally catching up. As I drove off, I felt something shift. Not satisfaction. Not peace. But something real. For the first time since I opened that bedroom door, I felt like I had my name back. Not Charlie the betrayed. Not Charlie the fool. Just Charlie. A man who looked the devil in the eye and didn't blink. A man who chose not to destroy, but to define. I didn't need to break his jaw. I'd already broken his story. And sometimes, that's the deeper blow. I didn't go home after I left Jared standing there. I didn't go anywhere, really. Just drove. No direction. No plan. Just the road stretching out ahead like a blank page I wasn't sure I had the right to write on anymore. I stopped outside town near an old lookout point we used to visit in our 20s. The bench was still there, weathered and cracked, like it had survived storms and sun and silence all the same. I sat down and stared out at the nothing. At the hills. The trees. The open space that didn't care who I was or what I'd lost. I thought it would feel like an ending. Like I'd crossed some finish line after months of running through fire. But it didn't. It felt like I was standing in front of a door that hadn't been opened yet. And I didn't know what was on the other side. I lit a cigarette. Just one. Let it burn slow, the way my anger used to. I didn't feel proud of what I'd done to them. But I didn't feel regret either. That surprised me. I always thought revenge came with some kind of moral tax, some guilt that crept in later. But there was none. Only clarity. What hurt the most wasn't the betrayal. Not anymore. It was the silence that came after. The absence of her voice in the house. The space in the bed that never filled. The way I still reached for her out of habit when I turned in my sleep. I didn't miss Ruth, not really. I missed who she used to be. Who I used to be with her. I missed the illusion. And now that it was gone, I didn't know what to build in its place. A few nights later, I sat in the living room, flipping through photo albums. One picture stopped me. Us, early 30s, at a lake. I'm holding her from behind. She's laughing, head tilted back, the sun making her hair glow like fire. I looked at that photo for an hour. Trying to remember if that moment was real. If that woman, that joy, ever really existed. And you know what? She did. I saw it in her eyes. In mine. We loved each other. Once. Deeply. Stupidly. Honestly. But love is not a contract. It's not a chain. It's not a shield against change. And sometimes, it dies quietly while you're still holding on. And so I made a decision. I wrote her a letter. I didn't write it out of forgiveness. I didn't even write it for her. I wrote it for me. Ruth, I began, you broke something in me I didn't know could break. Not because you cheated. But because you let me love you with everything I had while hiding the parts of you that were already gone. You were mine. And then, suddenly, you weren't. I've spent months trying to understand it. Trying to blame you. Blame him. Blame myself. But the truth is, blame doesn't fix anything. And I'm tired of trying to fix what doesn't want to be whole. I don't hate you. I don't love you. I just see you now, clearly, maybe for the first time. And I see myself too. And I know this much, I deserve more than what you left me with. I deserve peace. So this letter is not a plea, or a warning. It's a burial. For the life we had. For the man I was. And for the woman you'll never be again. Goodbye. I didn't send it. Didn't need to. I folded it, placed it in the back of that photo album, behind the picture from the lake. A kind of tombstone. Quiet. Final. Then I packed a small bag. Nothing dramatic. Just clothes, a few books, my fishing rod. I got in the truck, and I drove. This time, not to escape. Not to chase. But to start. Somewhere. Anywhere. And as the sun rose, bleeding into the horizon like a promise I didn't know I still believed in, I whispered something I hadn't said in a long time. I'm still here. Not the same man. But not a broken one either. The story didn't end with her betrayal. It began with my survival.